In this video, I'm ranking all of the legends in Season 13. I'll give you the lowdown on who's good, who's great, and who you probably don't want to play at all. This video will be specific for the first rank split on Stormpoint, and it will certainly carry over to the rest of the maps for pubs as well. But I want to make two things clear before I get into it. Number one, all of the legends are ranked equally in whichever tier they are listed in. And number two, this is just my opinion from what I've played and who I've seen other high-level players using this season. Don't get too pressed if I don't put your main at the top of the list. There will always be great players using mediocre legends and doing just fine. Alright, with that out of the way, let's begin with D tier. First is Lifeline. Our beloved medic is lacking quite a bit these days. Despite her decent pick rate in just about every game mode, you rarely will see a Lifeline in higher elo ranked, and that's for a couple reasons. One, her ultimate is probably the worst part about her. See, Apex has evolved a lot since its inception, and there are already so many ways to obtain the loot that her care package can offer. On top of that, good players will generally see a Lifeline ult coming down halfway across the map and just try to hunt that team down. However, I must say, I do enjoy playing her in pubs. Her tactical is good, and her passive is still pretty good. I mean, it's the only automated revive in the game, but it offers little protection from enemies. If they buffed her ultimate, she would certainly move up, and rumor has it they are already working on one for an upcoming patch. Next in D tier is Wattson. Now I know this will offend some of the Wattson mains out there, but her kit is just not optimal for Stormpoint. On top of that, her kit has been bugged for going on like 2 seasons now. The fences just flat out don't work sometimes. I don't know how or why they haven't fixed this, but it's a problem, and it hasn't been addressed. Now, the one thing I will end with on Wattson is she is unique in the fact that she was played in ALGS by some teams, and some of those teams found moderate success with her. The other legends on her team need to complement the Wattson playstyle, and teams can certainly make do with her, but I just don't think that Stormpoint is the best map for her. Last legend in D tier is Revenant, and we all know Stormpoint is the biggest map, and what that means for Revenant's ultimate is, well, it's not great. The ultimate is just not what it used to be first off, but you also need to be pretty close to neighboring teams to even have a chance to pull off a successful rev push. Now even the devs have admitted he could use some love. I will say, the best part about his kit currently is his tactical and his very quiet passive. But he does have a huge hitbox, and that ultimate is just extremely lackluster on a large map like Stormpoint. We'll see if he gets any changes in an upcoming patch. Before I move on to C tier, I want to let you all in on a new feature YouTube added called Super Thanks. If you appreciate all the time and effort that goes into making these videos and you want to help further support my channel, you can now send a tip and get your comment highlighted below. This is by no means necessary, but I think it's a cool new addition and I just wanted to let you guys in on it. I appreciate all of your support regardless. Thank you. All right, starting off in C tier, we have Mirage. Now, if you guys have watched any of my recent videos on my second channel, you would know I love playing Mirage in pubs, but it kind of just ends there for me. He has his moments where he can bamboozle enemies, but overall, his kit can be neutralized fairly easily. It's not too hard for enemies to figure out who the real Mirage is. I do think the footstep audio the decoys have, coupled with the short cooldown on his ultimate, makes him a fun legend. And you also can't forget he basically has the best revive animation in the game. But with all of that said, there's way better picks out there for the ranked grind in Season 13. Now, I know I'm going to get yelled at in the comments over these next 2 picks, but it is what it is. Next up is Loba. The best part about Loba's kit is her Black Market ultimate, which yes, can come in handy for her and her teammates, especially when you guys are really broke on ammo or heals during a match. And I thought about putting Loba in B tier potentially, but I feel like her passive and her tactical are just subpar at best, and therefore I see so many other better options this season than Loba. The last legend I have in C tier is Octane, and this will be fun. I said in my last tier list that most Octanes are clowns, and some of you were pretty heated about that. But hey, the truth is 95% of Octanes stim all over the place, are way ahead of the team, and are quick to go down in that fight. If they aren't doing that, they are jump padding full force into a 1v3 and also getting knocked. So let me be clear when I say this. If Octane is played correctly, then yes, he's a fine legend, basically middle of the road, but he's still not even top tier, even when he's played to his max potential. He's not the worst pick if you're going to solo queue this season though. All right, we're getting into the good legends now, B tier. First is my main man Fuse. Some of you are gonna be like, you put Fuse above Loba and Octane? And yeah, I did. I love Fuse, he's super fun. But they need to adjust some small things regarding his ultimate and his tactical for him to move any higher in a tier list. There's a trade-off with him, where using his abilities can be a little wonky, and you get killed because you either take damage from them, or you don't have your weapon drawn at the right time, and it's that slight difference between you winning or losing that fight. The devs admitted this legend was doomed from release because his abilities center around dealing damage, and that's a tough fit for a game like Apex Legends. I've also learned he requires immense teamwork. Fuse needs to wear down opponents with gunfire and his abilities, while his teammates work angles and punish them off of that damage. The most annoying things about Fuse is shooting a knuckle cluster only to have your teammate walk in front of it at the last second and it ricochets back in your face. Or when you go to use his ultimate and you place it meticulously around some enemies and they walk out of it within the first couple seconds, only taking 5 damage. If they were able to fix some things with Fuse, I would put him in A tier for sure, because no other legend has these abilities that can constantly wear down opponents. Second is Caustic. Now, if this was World's Edge, Caustic would rank higher, but on this map, it's very wide open, and he's not the best fit for it. Caustic in an up-close fight with his ultimate ready is a great fight on any map, but it's really only those niche moments where he's in his prime. All other scenarios, he tends to be a liability in my opinion. And this is coming from someone who has around 20,000 kills on Caustic, so I do know a thing or two about this guy. Third is Crypto. Now, he's probably the weakest recon legend this split, and I do think that Crypto can be utilized by top tier players. So if you're using Crypto and you're doing fine with him, hey, do your thing. But I have found a lot more value in the other recon legends. And the main reason behind this is because Crypto requires a lot of calculated pushes. And in that, there's a lot of room for error. The whole team needs to be on the same page. Whereas the other recon legends, which I will touch on in a moment here, seem to provide more reconnaissance through faster and easier methods. Fourth in B tier is Mad Maggie. Now, some of you are going to be thinking, Mad Maggie's a trash legend. And there's no doubt her ultimate is subpar at best. I was surprised to see that they did not alter this in the patch notes this season. It feels very random in terms of placement, detonation, and trajectory. However, I have found her passive and tactical to be very strong and straightforward. If you're taking up the aggressive playstyle this split, a legend like Mad Maggie has a very straightforward kit, which can be a valuable asset for the entire team. Fifth in B tier is the walking refrigerator himself, Pathfinder. I feel like I say the same thing every tier list regarding this legend, which is he is the most fun legend to play. And he has a large skill gap, but his hitbox is a major problem. You will see most high-level players who use Pathfinder quickly switch off of him because he simply takes more damage and dies quicker than any other legend in the game. Back in Season 8, they removed low profile from Pathfinder and increased his hitbox size, but since then, he's been left in the basement. There have been no changes, and it's unfortunate. He also needs a buff to his underwhelming passive. With all that said though, if you can master his grapple, the outplay ability on this character is nearly unmatched. The last legend going into B tier is Bangalore. This very straightforward legend briefly saw a high pick rate in ranked last season. This was mostly due to the bang smoke trick, where you shoot her smoke at your feet and play the very edge of the smoke cloud. While doing this, you were not clearly seen. However, you could see your opponent fairly well. But during the patch notes, they addressed this as a bug because apparently controller players were getting aim assist while doing this, which was unintentional. No matter what, this is a slight nerf to Bangalore players who are on controller. I still think she's a middle of the road pick, but she has her valuable moments. Alright, we're moving on to the second best, A tier. First is Wraith. Now, Wraith is a really strong pick this season once again. The only reason I don't have her in S tier is because Stormpoint is the largest map, making her portal less relevant in the majority of situations. There's no doubt Wraith is one of the best options for Season 13, and honestly, you could make a strong case to put her in S tier. However, there's a lot of Wraiths out there who underutilize her kit and don't think of her as the navigator of the team. I feel like her tactical and her ultimate actually require a high level of game sense to pull off efficiently. If that sounds like you, then Wraith should definitely be your pick this season. The second legend in A tier is going to be Newcastle. This defensive juggernaut has quickly made his rise to the top of the meta. People are still figuring out all of the different ways that his kit can be utilized, and the possibilities seem to keep coming. His passive, centering around the revival of his teammates, seems to be strong and can easily be combined with his other abilities. His tactical and ultimate are proving to have a lot of versatility in just about every engagement you'll find yourself in. So if you're going to be playing as Newcastle, it's important that you embrace the supportive and defensive role for your team. However, if you just have a Newcastle on your team, I'd recommend staying close to them throughout the match. Because whatever trouble you find yourself in, Newcastle has a way to either be very defensive or be extremely aggressive. Some of you may be wondering, well, Mangos, if he's so good, why isn't he an S tier? And my answer to you is, it's still early in the season, and I have to see how other players are going to respond to this new threat. Ultimately, more will be revealed. Next up is Ashe. I think Ashe is a great pick for the first split on Stormpoint for a few reasons. The first being her passive. We all know how difficult it can be to find enemy teams on this enormous map. On one hand, it's helpful to know where your next potential fight could be. But on the other hand, if you're playing ranked and you've already got plenty of kill points and you're just trying to make a safe rotation, the information from her passive ability can be paramount. Now, the second reason she's great is her portal. While it's not as flexible as Wraith's portal, it can be faster and more optimal for aggressive pushes, as well as a quick getaway. Her tactical isn't anything special, but it still does 20 damage and temporarily hinders an opponent's movement. I really like playing as Ashe, and I really like having one on my team. Alright, fourth is Rampart. The recent buffs to Rampart have actually made her really scary to go against. Between the walls going up faster and having much more health, on top of Sheila being quicker to access, she can output insane amounts of damage. Listen guys, Apex prides itself on a lengthy time to kill, and this legend seriously speeds that up. I know it sounds kind of crazy to have Rampart this high up in a tier list, but I've used her a good amount and I've gone against quite a few, and let me tell you, she's not to be messed with. She's like the honey badger of Apex Legends. It's important that people understand that Rampart requires a specific playstyle though. It doesn't necessarily have to be campy, but it does tend to be a bit slower in certain aspects. I keep going back to teamwork, and Rampart is no exception. Your teammates can utilize the amped cover and take full advantage of the high amounts of damage you can deal to enemy teams. Alright, closing out A tier is Horizon. She remains a solid pick for the mobility role on your team. I mean, we saw no changes to Horizon's kit, but Stormpoint has a lot of verticality to it, making her tactical more valuable than ever. So you can't go wrong with having Horizon on your squad this season. Alright, we made it onto the best of the best, S tier. Now, unfortunately, not much has changed here from last season, except for one addition. Seer. Now, Seer's kit wasn't changed in any way. It's just that players woke up to the value that he can provide. There's something about constant wall hacks that push legends to the top of the meta. Seer's passive, tactical, and ultimate all center around revealing an enemy's location. The information that can come from these abilities can help dictate your every move, whether it's rotation, hard push, or a sketchy retreat. We all know when Seer was initially released, everyone knew how overpowered he was. He was quickly nerfed, and people were convinced he was trash. Now, I could probably find some psychological reason to make sense of this school of thought. However, the fact is, he's actually just really strong and can be relevant in every situation your team finds itself in. However, if you're going to run a Recon Legend, you're going to have to decide between Seer and my next pick, Bloodhound. Now, this should come as no surprise as Bloodhound has remained top tier since their rework in Season 6. Little has changed since then, and similar to Seer, the information that Bloodhound can provide is tough to replicate, giving not only you, but your teammates that information instantaneously with zero voice communication. I do like how Bloodhound can fit well into the solo queue experience. Some legends require much more voice communication, whereas Bloodhound doesn't really. If you're just starting out in Apex, Bloodhound is an excellent pick for you and your team. Alright, next is the big man himself, Gibraltar. Season after season, this pick remains almost mandatory as you climb the ranks. The gun shield, the bubble, and the airstrike are all menaces to deal with. Gibby can help his teammates when they're in a pinch, whether that's a tough rotation or an aggressive push with a team holding high ground. Most players don't enjoy playing Gibby. He feels slower than other legends, even though he isn't, and he actually does have a pretty big skill gap. If you can learn to master Gibby, or be fortunate enough to find someone who already has, you'll be well on your way to a successful ranked season. Alright, this brings us finally to the last pick, Valkyrie. Although she did see a slight nerf to her ultimate, it has had minimal effect on her overall. Between her jetpack passive, her missile swarm that deals damage and stuns you, and for anyone who doesn't understand, this is a slew of missiles that does more damage than and has the same stun as a Wattson fence. And if you thought I was done there, I'm not. She has a mobile redeploy for her whole entire team. So yeah, when you put all of that together on one legend, you've basically got the best legend ever created. I recommend having a Valkyrie on your team at all times in Season 13. But none of this will do you any good unless you have top tier game sense. I covered everything you need to know in this video here. Check it out next. Thanks for watching. Peace.